Well, thank you guys for being back on time. We hopefully, we want this to be more interactive. And even I know some of you all work with Ashwati and everything. So here's a chance for you to ask her questions and other people questions so you can counter things. Yeah. So, all right. So, before we get into the next use case, which people talked about imaging, it can apply to a lot of different products and applications because today, they're primarily classifier problems using computer vision and a different set of algorithms from, the digital signal processing once used. AVR, you had wanted to share a use case journey, right, of a transition.
Yeah. When I cross
Can you
certain
hold
limit,
the
you
mic a
tell.
little bit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I cross the time limit, you tell me because a
When it
story.
goes to when it goes to 55, you stop.
55.
Yeah.
Okay, great. This is a story at Aravind Eye Hospital. Okay, so I was there to build their electronic medical record about 10 years back, maybe even 15 years back. So the question was, what do you want to do with the electronic medical record other than simplifying your process? So they wanted to collect data and do some analytics. AI and all was not the keyword in 2010. So we were ready with the electronic medical record and tons of data. Then Google came into picture saying that, okay, we can use this data to give you some solutions. So they chose the diabetic retinopathy prediction was the chosen field. So they took the data. Okay, there's a lot of annotation was demanded on the data, clean up the data, and then give it to them. So then they came back with a solution. So now this is important. So this is from there, it is driven by the hospital. This is not like a startup going and telling that I have a solution. Do you want to try? It's a different level of experience. Means there's a buy-in has happened. Okay, so you need to focus on making it work rather than selling your concept and stuff. Then it was given, and then we did a parallel run. Okay, that's where you really see the reservation from the clinician. Okay, so they will compare. There's some score. You just do that and stuff. And for many months it was happening. Slowly they were gaining confidence. I remember I was sitting in one meeting. They had some 3 cases. Okay, so 2 cases actually AI said that there is a retinopathy present. The doctor said no. So they brought all the expert doctors in the group and then analyzed. Finally, they agreed, yeah, what AI said is right. The third one was the most challenging. Till the end, they could not conclude saying that it is present. But the important point is, no, I think let's go with what AI says. So that is the time actually the shift has happened. Okay, so that's very, very important in terms of the trust. Then, then another side note, so what happened was, I don't know who tried that. So they made an attempt to predict whether it's a male or a female based on the fundus image. And it predicted. So the chief medical officer was telling me, sir, in my knowledge, okay, he has got probably about 30 years of experience. There is no marker in the eye to distinguish whether somebody is a male or female. How does the system know about it? Okay. And then I asked him how accurate is it. Sir, very, very accurate. The way in which he said. So now I need to believe that. So the explainability becomes very important. Okay. I spent 45 minutes. Okay, with a minimal amount of. So why he spoke to me was because I could talk in a simple language. And I explained to him the feature extraction, a little bit of statistics and how it correlates and stuff and stuff. Probably at the end I felt, yeah, what Vijay Rajan says seemed to be right, but still reservation. But finally, it's been deployed. Okay, not only in their main hospital, 110 vision centers across Tamil Nadu. Okay, so quickly that their vision is that treat all the treatable blindness. Okay, don't leave anything. Okay, so now before this solution, in a village, somebody will come, you take the fundus image, send the image to Madurai, somebody will score and bring it back. So it will take roughly about 3 hours. By then, the patient would have gone. So you lost an opportunity to catch and help the blindness. Correct. So now they do it in like 2 minutes, and about I think in a simple numbers about a 97-98% accuracy. So I have seen this from the time we generated data and then creating an interest. Okay, simple analytics, business intelligence from Word to AI and ML. Top management buy-in is important. So when you, as a startup, when you go and sell it, just make sure the top management, they get what they really want, what they are really looking for. Okay, and talk in their language. Okay, so then it'll become a pull. So work with one or two hospitals and convert into your product. So I thought I'll just share with you. If you have any specific questions, we can.
That's
talk.
a great example. And just out of curiosity, this whole cycle you were with them, right? Was the story you told, was it 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? What was the time frame between I want to do this to having these 150 centers, 2 minutes, and this mystery male
so
female
our
classification?
electronic medical record, we took about 3 years to go live when people get comfortable with that. Then I think they wanted to go to cloud. And I think by then I started my in Excel, but I was just helping them out. So there is a time they were whether Google Cloud, Amazon Cloud, the Google came into picture. The Google saw that, oh, there's a lot of data here. So then they initiated this project. From that time they initiated the project, about 4 years before we could really put it in the vision centers.
Yeah.
So people who don't know about the vision center, in 10 rupees, you can walk into a vision center, test your eyes, and then get a prescription for the glasses.
And globally, this is the biggest eye in terms of screening, in terms of people talk about Narayana with their cardiac surgery, right? This Arvind Eye is a global example for
So when when they took me around, so that time they said about 1,000 outpatients. So when I went around and came back and said that, oh, you want to introduce electronic medical, you will slow down the whole thing. No, sir, that is a challenge. So today they run about 3,500 a day. And I know quite a few doctors. So people really love the product in terms of how it really helps. So that's a time when the chief medical officer was showing me the conversational AI.
So the interesting in terms of the cycle, right? It took 3 years to get them comfortable with EHR, but then probably only a few months for cloud because that didn't impact them directly. And once that digitization shift happens, right, even with AI and those adoptions, there will be like a slower uptake, but as time moves on, as more solutions happen, it will just accelerate the willingness to adopt and the willingness to do more. So you need to understand where in this I don't know a better word than the hype cycle of a new technology you are in, and have the right expectations.
They have a very, very conservative group on introduction of technology. Quickly, just okay, interesting one. So in a city center, okay, a patient walks into 6 steps before you meet the doctor. Electronic medical record was introduced 1 step at a time. So first time actually you do it in electronically, she'll take a printout. So when you go to the next step, you show the paper. So from then on was paper. The next week, first and 2 are actually digital. After that again. And then doctors were the last, they were resisting. And one fine day I still remember saying that, sir, best way is take the printer. Paper. Take the printer out. There's no printer. So the doctor has to do it. Okay. So that's how it's happened.
Romit, you had wanted to add something on this adoption.
I mean, what he said was quite interesting. I just wanted to add one more perspective as a startup when you go to hospitals, especially in India. Arvind Eye probably is one of the more charitable organizations, but most of the other groups are listed companies or for-profit organizations, and they don't work on very high margins, so their margins are already low. So you might go with a great technology, a great solution, but unless you are able to translate not just the clinical value, which you will do, but how that translates to some kind of a financial value. It could be lower cost for them in terms of efficiencies, or higher price that they can charge, or insurance claim that they can do. I think you need to also look at how your technology, the value of it in terms of the financially, how it will impact that particular hospital or hospital group. And thirdly, operational, like how does it fit into their operations? Adoption, after all this, financial also we fit, clinical also we fit. Adoption was a killer. People don't want to change what they do, right? From a nurse level all the way to the nurse supervisor, floor supervisor, everybody has their own power structure and their own, the way they
They
operate over
want
there.
change without having to change anything.
Correct. So how you look at operationally also making that technology work will make sure you're successful. It's not just your clinical, your technology might be great, but as you go for commercialization, these are a couple of other aspects you'll need to look at.
Yeah. So a general question, like for example, when we're talking about CT scans, right? Hospitals invest in very heavy capital equipment, like you have your Philips systems, you have your GE systems, all of it. I'm sure the hardware, as a company had pointed out, affects kind of the images you get. Everyone has proprietary things, like DICOMs is one of the biggest pain points in hospitals. From a clinical perspective also, right, how the technician captures the images or the number of slices, there's a lot of variables. So specifically, either in the imaging case or any other example in your experience, how do you handle this variability, both in today in a non-AI clinical setting where either the experience, the machine, all of that impacts the results, and from a data science or a product perspective, where you really have to, you can't own everything. You are making layers in SAM data. How do you actually manage these variables from a user as well as a technology perspective? Anyone wants to start?
Let's say if you take an example of a CT. Okay, so you want to do an add-on to the CT.
Could you hold the mic a bit closer?
Yeah, you want to add on to the CT. If I were the founder, this is what I will start. How many CTs are there? What type of CTs are there? How many slices are there? Okay, so I'm going to fit for that. I'm not going to fit for the latest CT, what GE is working on to be released in 3 years from now. The no takers will be there. So I start from market reality. Okay, this is what is happening. In that you size it. Okay, then you find out what is the level of data you require for you to do this, whatever you want to do. Okay. Next, actually, you find out all these CTs, are they giving you a DICOM compatible data? Okay. Do they allow connectivity? Okay. Because there's a hospital will have a CT. The CT, as per the specification, will have connectivity. But a hospital's version will not have a connectivity because somebody from purchase would have just negotiated, I don't need connectivity if it's going to come down 1 lakh. Right? So you do everything and go there and find out, oh, connectivity is not enabled there. So do your marketing say homework. Okay. The technology, I don't think we need to tell you. Okay. But set the reality where you're going to be talking to. I think one of the points actually they keep asking the question, who is going to pay for it? Okay, that's a fundamental question. Okay, it improves productivity. Okay, but who's going to pay for that? If you can articulate that productivity as a ROI.
You can see more patients in the same amount of time.
Anything. Okay, but there are sometimes you are lucky, like me. I was in Manipal Hospital and we were talking about electronic medical record. The current chairman, that time he was pretty young and then he was not yet a chairman. So he asked me, tell me Vijay, who is going to pay for it? So what is the ROI? I said, Ranjan, what did you say? ROI. Okay, let's wind up this meeting. There's no ROI. Okay, then how do I invest? But I was actually, I made some ridiculous suggestions. I said that Ranjan, you can create that time I think it's a different word, equivalent to data science. You can create a data science subject for your medical students.
Charge fees.
Okay, he said, what? So, you must do throw things like that. Then I gave an example of what some of the US hospitals have done. And I gave some data. And then he was thrilled. He said, okay, come after 15 days. And then after 15 days, he said, let's go. Okay. Let's go and do that.
Ashwati, any comments on this variability from the image itself and various systems?
Yeah, certainly. So this is a general thumb rule. So if we want to build well-generalized AI models, we need diversity in our data.
Including bad stuff.
Yes, including the bad stuff. So the first step here would be to ensure that we have data coming in from various manufacturers, data coming in where the labels are from different, say, types of people. So healthcare professionals, but at say various levels, various degree of label accuracy in itself, various protocols and standards that are followed, various geographies and all of that. So that is step one. Step two can be around the data processing, pre-processing that we do. So there can be normalization methods where we normalize the data across subgroups. So irrespective of say the intensity settings or the slice thickness, for example, the image, the CT scan looks fairly comparable. So that is another thing from a tech perspective, a normalization step that we do. There are also innovative ideas here that can be explored. For example, we are now exposed to these generators which can generate images based on the prompt that we give. So I can talk about, I want a visual of a mountain with these color flowers with a stream flowing in, and we see that AI is able to generate that. The journey towards a model like that has been primarily through a concept called GANs, which is generative adversarial networks. And what it does is that you have a generator part of the model. It keeps refining the sort of content that it's creating, and then you have a adversarial network which is trying to catch whether this is a real image or something that AI generated, and both of them train together. So the generator is forced to become better and better and better because its job is to fool the adversarial. We can use a similar concept here where I can have a feature extractor which is extracting features, and I can have a discriminator whose job can be to identify whether this feature is specific to a domain. By domain, I mean everything that is not related to the clinical condition. So it can be a manufacturer, it can be a particular setting, it can be a particular protocol standard. So if this discriminator is trained to identify whether the feature is more descriptive about a domain rather than a true clinical condition, that is how I can generate very rich feature extractors. So there are a lot of inbuilt AI methodologies to be explored here, where we can do away with these biases.
So I have a question for you. Okay, this is a question I used to ask when I sit in a startup. Pitches will make. I was sitting as a judge. They'll say we are using AI. I used to ask the question: have you validated your model? Okay, I don't have an answer. I just ask because software we ask a question, right? Have you validated? Can you prove that there are no bugs? Correct. So you have some thoughts like what exactly the answer I should get?
Yes, the answer should certainly be affirmative. So that you need to
But I
get
think
a
you
yes.
should ask
But
how.
how?
Yeah.
Yes.
And she'll give you the ideal answer, and you see if they give the same thing. How?
So you need to ask how. You need to ask on what sort of data set, what has been the training, validation, and testing split. I would be very skeptical if somebody is using say 90% of the data for training and leaving a very small data set for validation or testing. I would also be skeptical if there is not enough representation in the test set as there is in training set. So Pooja mentioned earlier that so when I was talking about data, she mentioned that even the bad stuff, right? Yes. So we need the bad stuff, which can be blurry images or images with difficult to catch clinical conditions, not just in training, but in testing as well. So those are the sort of questions that I would ask and expect performance across the board.
That the learning engine is fixed, is it? So only the
Yes.
data what I give actually will be that.
Yeah. And
So where does this learning engine come from? Are there varieties and
Yes.
there are as many like models, architectures, as many problem statements exist. So the second question, so this is the first question where the data distribution itself needs to make sense. The numbers that are quoted have to be tested on across subgroups. And the next is the modeling bit. So because this is health tech, we do not want a complete black box solution, right? So the second nature of question would be around driving explainability for repeatability and explainability around the solution that exists. So if the model is giving so and so prediction for such an input, what is it that the model has learned? Can you explain it in some way or form?
Actually, I know this brings up an interesting point with, for example, you can't patent a data set, right? It can be a trade secret, it can be proprietary. And models, they're built upon each other. Like you're using some open model, some closed. When you're talking to even the Philips machine, how do you make sure you're not infringing on something proprietary? One thing is you can patent it. The second thing is when you're utilizing, other technologies or algorithms or things out there, how do you make sure that you're not going to get sued by?
Yeah, so before you start off anything, you need to do something called as a landscape. And that gives you a very clear idea of who your competitors are and what your gaps are. And then, as you are tweaking your technology, your ideas, you need to make sure that you're not basically infringing on them. And that can only be done if you start off at the first stage by doing your landscape or your freedom to operate search. If you go reverse order, then you're going to be in trouble.
So, but for example, I'm taking the image from Philips. Now, it's an output. They have given it in this scenario. If I'm using the image they created, I'm not infringing upon their technology that created it, correct?
No, that's not the case. Yes.
But if I'm asking them for, say, some proprietary or some data on their side, like I'm building a layer and I need more visual on their specific either algorithm or outputs, I might need to license that bit if I want to use, say, their pre-processing technique to use that.
So yes. So when you're filing a patent and when you've done your landscape search and you have found that there are all of these pre-existing technologies, the way we draft a patent is that those will all be considered as prior art. And we draft a claim such that it will very clearly say that those are the prior art, and then all the new features that you're adding to it. So Pooja's question is a little complex. Like she's talking about it from a commercialization aspect also. I'm starting with the drafting aspect and then I'll go to that. So you draft around that, and that's where the the landscaping, the freedom to operate, the prior art search aspect comes in. Now, when you're going to when you're actually going to work the invention, then yes, licensing comes in. You will need to enter into talks with all of the people who hold the relevant granted patents, and you have to figure out how you're going to use their technology and marry it with your technology and what your best options are on that. So that's when you actually work your invention and want to use it and create a product in the market. Now, coming back to what many of them were talking about, the black box idea. So even when you draft a patent, you should be able to explain what is actually going on. So you are claiming.
You can't just say CNN and then it.
Yes. So you are claiming a little high level, but your description, your dependent claims, everything end up giving very specific details. If you're fairly confident that it's sort of a black box scenario, then your best strategy actually would be defensive publishing, where you just put your idea out there, say in a journal publication, so no one else can prohibit you from working in that space. So just keep that in mind always, that even if you don't want to file, say for whatever financial restrictions, you have an ideological, some people just want to keep it open for everybody, don't not file. Go ahead and do a defensive publishing, because then you can practice, anybody else can practice, but you won't get pushed out of that space. I've had this happen with a client, a fairly large group, where they didn't want to patent because they wanted to keep it open for everybody. But then what happened is that they got pushed out of their own space. They couldn't practice because someone else went ahead and filed. And so that's something that you need to look out for. When you're filing a patent, it's not claiming. I earlier talked about broad claims, but when you are claiming broad, you need to be able to support it with validation metrics, and you need to be able to show generalized use. All of that data has to be provided, just like how regulatory has their requirements. Even the patent office has requirements. As you're showing novelty, you're showing inventiveness, but you also have to show enablement. And that means basically showing your test data, showing that what you're claiming in your document is actually possible.
No, actually.
And also, you need to show technical advantage.
So let's say I have done a experiment and I have proven. That's what I'm going to claim. Then you always say that broad basing.
Yes.
So when I do a broad basing, do I need to show that, or do I need to really do an experiment, or do I need to say that it's possible?
That's a great question. So, what you need to do is when your system is optimized for that experiment, right? But there will be components in there which can be replaced, easily substituted. Say an expert like Ashwati looks at it, or yourself, they'll say, hey, I can easily replace this with another model. And it's very routine experimentation. That word is important, because then you can argue that I can use all of these substitutions for that or alternates for that, and I can claim it because it's just routine experimentation.
It's obvious,
Yes, so that's also called obviousness. But the moment it goes out of the realm of routine experimentation to undue experimentation, it's inventive. So it's not obvious anymore. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I'll get to. I wanted both the regulatory and clinical perspective in terms of. You can add comments to what has been said, but there's this very interesting thing. I don't know if any of y'all have seen your reports. You can have a positive, negative, and then there's indeterminate, like not sure. Those borderline cases. It happens in real life also with clinicians, like the Arvindai example. And what is how acceptable is that? I don't know in an AI perspective, and from a regulator perspective, when you're saying that, do they look favorably or unfavorably when you don't have that binary? Like, can you actually say the model I'm defining, but in many cases I don't know, so I'll say I don't know. Is there a audit view on that? So either.
Yes. So I was looking at the Apple Watch de novo clearance for the detection of AFib, AFib condition. So they have three states. Is it a normal heart rate? Does it have AFib, or it's indeterminate? So they're very clear about these three determinations. So I think the regulator will look favorably at if you cannot detect confidently a condition, you say so.
So that is a case they check for. Like, if you're not sure, how do you handle it? And so it's better to say not sure than to, flip the coin and go either way. And clinically, how is that treated?
So just one more, sorry.
Go ahead.
There's also a point on the workflow integration. So FDA has approved, I think, more than 1,000 AI/ML SAMD devices. Almost 85% to more than 85% are in the radiology, CT, MR, nuclear ultrasound, and the cardiology segment. So in terms of the important point that you could present a user interface, your own user interface to the clinician. That is one more step the clinician has to do. Look at one more UI and one more terminal. Right, so it doesn't integrate very clearly into the workflow. So the trend I see now is it's a command line AI/ML SAMD. So basically, you just invoke your application, it listens to the PACS pushes the image, you do your analysis, do annotation, and put it as an annotation segment and send it back to the PACS. Now the doctor, as they see their PACS and RIS, Radiological Information System terminals, it's already integrated with their workflow. So that is a new trend, which is, I observe that in terms of the workflow integration.
Great. Clinically.
Sure. I think that, the important thing to understand is even from a clinical perspective, there are inconclusive cases, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time, when you're labeling this data, the technique that is used is, inter-rater agreement, right, of observed outcomes. And you will have typically, regulators demand, 3 experts in the space at minimum. And you will have these cases that people just disagree. And typically the route that we take in that is that you have one senior expert that may be, designed, allowed to take a determinative vote.
So you weight the
Yes. That and again, these are research approaches so that you can have a final ground truth. But at the same time, there are several instances where the appropriate clinical action would be to do further testing, and that's why in these outcomes that we develop algorithmically or we're developing from a technology perspective, we need to also provide that outcome that we don't have enough information, therefore we do not have an answer. And that's what this inconclusive bucket really falls into, so that further testing is done in that scenario.
Okay. So I want to, like in healthcare, right? Like you said, we're slow adopters. It's very, very slow. Human in the loop is very important because of the life and death aspect, the direct health aspect. So from, a product perspective, both from the value proposition as well as when you give, when you actually give the specs to the engineering teams and the data science teams, how are you managing this new area, which is around human in the loop, or is it just part of the regular workflow where users always interacted with your UI UX? Has it changed when you have AI?
Well, first, probably just continue what Doctor was talking about is that yes, it's important to actually inform that you don't know because it's all finally down to the risk, right? So you have to lower the risk as much as possible and be very clear. I don't know. Take a decision on your own. Coming back to human in the loop, I think that's also what we are doing now. We know that at least for some time going forward, in diagnostic already human is in the loop, but in monitoring and also in therapy, the human will be in the loop. We're not directly going to depend on a AI monitor or even a AI therapy in the near future, right? So we are designing most of our applications with human in the loop, and in fact in user interfaces we are explicitly telling people that this particular thing is AI driven. This particular thing has got some, it's not your regular. So be careful when you use it. Be aware when you use it. And, we are informing them today. That is what, we have taken the approach is we inform them that this is being driven by, we don't want to hide it. We want to say this is AI driven. There is, we have done all our validation, all that stuff, but it might not be, it is based on a representative data set. It might not exactly match what you are seeing over here. So that's, at least in product, that's the approach I'm seeing more and more being taken as of now. It could change as people trust the product more, but that's my perspective.
From a data science perspective, does it change? Do you have to split your algorithmic design? Do you factor in the user input maybe? And then, how do you actually, from an architecture standpoint, you may have an ensemble model or multiple algorithms. How do you design for the human in the loop, and how can that actually benefit the algorithm for further improvements?
Right. So, human in the loop from the model development perspective is a very umbrella term because it merely means embedding humans somewhere in the process of algorithm development. It can be as early as labeling, because today we also have labels which are automatically generated, right? So we can have a human in the loop where, imagine I have 100 medical images to be labeled, and I use some form of automatic labeling to do that, and then a human in the loop samples maybe 10 out of them and sees that
Confirms or
yeah,
says no.
confirms. Yes. Does it look okay? It can be true for the arrhythmia detection problem as well. So I could have like a base level of algorithm that sort of tags the whole thing, and a human who sort of samples a few of those segments and verifies that okay, the algorithm said that this is a portion with arrhythmia. It seems like it is, or correct. These are the cases. So that gives me a very focused approach of what it is that the model now needs to improve. So if there are segments which were marked by the algorithm, and now the human expert has said that this doesn't look like a true event, or if there are events which were missed, I know that these are the specific cases that we need to focus on moving forward. So that is one thing. And the other aspect was an adaptive modeling that Bhupinder ji earlier alluded to, right? Where you have something on live, on production, and then based on human inputs, we are changing the model. I feel that's a lot more riskier to do, because then we're losing out on reproducibility, because you may have one model that is deployed on the server.
Patient 1 gets a worse model than patient 100.
Correct. Yes. So you may have a worse or better. We do not know that, because a lot that's
It
the
can get worse
yeah
also,
that's the reason it is riskier, because now a lot of it rides on the expertise of the human giving the feedback. Correct. So I may have a model deployed into the product, and imagine that I start tuning the model based on live inputs from the user, right? That may not be entirely reliable, because it is again relying too much on the quality of the user input, which may not necessarily be accurate all the time. So I would be a little risk averse towards that.
And this is a good segue to, in terms of human in the loop from a regulatory perspective, often a question is asked, where does the AI live? In the sense, is it like when you say, is it a locked model? Is it, even if you have reinforced learning, typically you'll release versions 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.n. So from in healthcare, I believe it's the way the regulation set up, not that it's not allowed, but it's pretty much set up to not have adaptive learning models because of the consistency, right, today?
So, I think in terms of fundamental principles, be it data management or model performance tuning, doing the performance evaluation and the mechanism to do updates, there are some common principles that apply across the spectrum, whether it's a logged algorithm or really adaptive real-time algorithm. I haven't seen any approvals yet on the real-time approval algorithms. I think it's a much bigger evidence basis required to prove that. So most of the approaches are taken with a locked model, saying I log the model, release it on production. Then I have my development stages where I take in the new data, I fine tune the model, maybe get new data sources, do the data modeling, do the model algorithm changes. And once I'm confident with that it's giving a better performance level, then I put it on the production. And this I can tell the regulator. As a manufacturer, I can tell the regulator and make it part of my PCCP.
Yes.
I forgot the
change
terminology.
control plan.
Change control plan.
Yeah. Pre-change control.
So, as a manufacturer, manufacturing the SAMD, what are the use cases that I want to extend the model? I want to improve my performance, right? I want to improve my sensitivity and specificity, the clinical performance of the algorithm. In a traditional software, if I do that, I have to go back and again file it with the regulator. But with the PCCP, I can avoid that.
So just for context,
We are talking
when you
about,
make your claims, you will say with EG, like my accuracy is within say plus minus 3 heartbeats. If you're doing a count, you will never say it will exactly be 3, but you can be at 1, you can be at 0 point something. So your claims are usually at least this good. So you set the bar there, and all your improvements fall within that, but you can never get worse. Like when you test a model, you can't go from 3 to 4 and then still be under the same device.
So other extension that the change that we typically bring in is add a new sensor source, right? So time to market is important. Maybe for data science, I'll tell them, hey, just go ahead and do it with the Philips series. Do the first release, right? We'll just get the regulatory approval with Philips series. But now I want to add GE CT, Siemens CT, and other cities of the world. They may have minor variations. DICOM standards are there, but still on the data sets, there are minor variations, which my algorithm can take into account. So this I can tell the regulator. The principles remain the same, and I'm just adding new scanners, new sources, and I'm extending my software. So they're okay with that.
So you would say as long as the image meets these basic specifications, I'm not going to come back to you just because I'm incorporating other brands.
Right. That's right. Now you're doing arrhythmia detection, but now you say specifically I'll do AFib. On top of doing regular arrhythmia detection, I'll do AFib. Now this is now a new clinical condition that you're doing. So your intended use of the device changes. Now this cannot be part of PCC. The intended use of the device changes. Again, you have to go back and get the regulatory approval for the new intended use that you are claiming.
Great. So yeah, I think lunch will be served soon. So we'll wind up with the last thing of the human interaction. Does that factor at all in how you describe your patents or your claims? Because maybe reducing a step or something, but as far as I know, like an action or a procedures of it, other than maybe the US and Australia that allows for some method type of claims, how is this aspect treated when you describe your solutions?
Yeah, so you said that MedTech is very slow to adopting AI. I think the slowest is the Indian Patent Office. We are, I don't know, we are like decades behind.
We just about got software patents.
Yes,
now.
so there has been a release for CRI inventions recently, a draft which actually gives you much more clarity on what the Indian Patent Office considers as acceptable for inventions which, so we have a section 3K, which is indiscriminately used by the examiners to block any invention that talks about computer hardware and algorithms, etc. So there is the language in there that's or algorithms or computer program per se, which is just blanket used with anything that has the word a hardware processor computer used in there. So now there has been a shift. That resistive approach has changed. They have begun to accept interpretations of the act which allow you to patent more and get them granted in India. So the overarching viewpoint, the way they analyze it at the point of examination is, one, does it have technical effect? And by that, it could be increased accuracy, precision, reduced human error, all of those typical, you have to supply your validation metrics, you have to show generalized use, as I said before. So you show all of that data, and that checks that box. And then the second criteria that they apply is, does it have a real world application? So this is almost easier for medical devices because you can always pitch that angle. But if it's a purely without a medical kind of application methodology, it's a little bit harder, but there are ways around that. So this is the way. So now, this is a very complex question for the Indian Patent Office. Okay, they would be really confounded. But my basic kind of approach to this question is that, when are you using HITL, right? So it's in certain types of cases where you want human judgment, creativity, or their safety, ethical issues. Now, given advancements in technology within this space, if you are able to show and provide data that says that you can match the performance of a human, and that there is a technical advantage, say it's in improved accuracy or improved precision, and it's consistent, then you should be able to get it through on patentability as well.
I'm watching the lunch thing, so I'll know when it's actually ready. But are there any questions? Yes.
Since I was talking about licensing, so this is with respect to our colon cancer detection product. So there's for example, there's a company called Olympus. They create these endoscopy machines, which is being used globally. They also have recently they've also started offering colon cancer detection, like polyp detection, as an add-on.
Yeah.
And our product will work in parallel to these endoscopic machines.
Okay.
So can there be issues with respect to licensing in the future? Because we are using a feed from their system.
You're using a feed from their system. That's all right. So there wouldn't be a licensing requirement in that case.
Okay. Because we'll be using their feed for creating our drawing inferences.
Yeah, but in nowhere is you're merely using the data from their system or whatever their device, right? You're not actually in any way similar to what their device is.
Correct.
Yeah, so they are entirely two different systems. So there is no need for you to license. You just have to get permission from whether you can use that data.
Can
that's
you
all.
Extract it? Like, for example, like many of the companies, to get that image, right, and things of that nature, if it's something that's easily available, and that's the whole point of an endoscope, where it goes into their system. But I also know specifically Olympus has their proprietary software where you can add things, tag things, and to get that as an output, like right now the doctors are using it. So if you're using the version that's in the hospital, that's one thing. But if you need to directly talk to their software, it may not even be a IP licensing, but it could be a commercial level agreement.
You'll just have to get permission from.
How do you take it?
Yeah, how do you extract?
There's a video feed, like parallel video feed. We'll add a splitter and then take the video feed from the monitor.
Splitter.
Okay, so from there. So
Yeah,
they
yeah.
cannot stop that.
They're getting
Yeah.
raw, basically.
Yeah, we want to make sure we don't affect the original endoscopic machine.
That's correct. But can they protect that by giving some sort of encryption and stuff? Just to watch out.
Okay.
Because I remember we had a startup out of IIT Madras. So he built a nice ICU integration. And after that he struggled, connecting with all the ICU machines. So he used to connect, it used to work. The next version actually it will not connect. Because those guys would have done something. So watch out. Saying
And
that
often it can violate their maintenance clause contract, because the splitter,
you do
they'll say
something.
warranty issue, and you'll be in big trouble with the hospital if you void that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is the typical, the video stream is actually is a typical, very like a decade long, we just used to take it, okay. But watch out that they don't, especially when they have their own product.
Got it. Yeah.
Any other questions?
They may have, essentially in their instructions
Mike,
for
Peter.
use. In their instructions for use, they may have very specific configuration guidelines saying that this needs to be assembled in this manner for it to be working appropriately. And if you're not using that device is not being used in the right way. So that's also something to watch out for.
So otherwise you do it very fast, your algorithm, so you can be an acquisition candidate for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a better.
That could
plan.
be a better way
Tell
of,
them what you're doing and basically say, okay, their development team doesn't have to spend time doing this solution.
So stop your engineering, do some selling for the company.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
So then we'll just go one at a time. Just the last thing, right? It's if you were to give like one piece of advice, whether since we're talking about moats and valleys, either to overcome an overbearing challenge or to basically protect yourself and help your time to market. What is a piece of advice you would give startups or companies from your area of expertise, from your example? We can start with anyone, whoever thinks of it first.
Simple. Safety.
Mike, please.
Safety, whether it is a privileged patient or the most unprivileged patient. Okay, for everybody, we as a MedTech people, we owe them safety. Okay, I think that's the only message I will give.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Ashwati?
I agree with safety certainly, but I would also say need assessment. So clinical need assessment and the business need assessment that Romit also mentioned earlier, because I know you meant this as a joke that if we could predict morbidity 24 hours in advance, but I would not lie that the data science brain in my head does get tempted to work on algorithms like that, but they're not going to be useful. I've in fact discussed this with clinicians and they've said that what will I do with it? Like you tell me 24
On
hour.
what basis can I tell the patient?
And even if you are 99% accurate, if the patient is not showing signs of morbidity, I am not going to be able to do anything and take clinical actions. And even if I were to take clinical actions, maybe I have saved that life. But there's no way for me to know that did I really save the life? Yeah. Did I really save the life? Were they close to death? That is such a difficult question to answer. So they said that maybe build something that's actually going to be useful and not get excited by shiny possibilities.
Or cool data problems. Yes, that's a great piece of advice. Yeah.
I think, safety and quality are no compromise in healthcare, so we can't go beyond that. But as I was mentioning earlier, making the product is actually the easier part. Communicating that value and being able to get revenue for that is harder. So think about it and don't wait until too late to actually go and validate
So don't
whether.
finish making the product
Don't finish
without
making the
being
product.
able to sell it.
Yes.
Okay. So are you telling the sales team to sell before you make it? Which they do anyway. He's not speaking on behalf of Baxter, he's speaking on behalf of him.
Healthcare. Yeah.
Clarification.
Yeah. Not on behalf of the organization. No, it's about identifying what is really the need. Sometimes you think that this is what will really solve the problem or this is what is the value. You will find out oftentimes that customer perception of value is different from your perception of value.
Anna, what about I know you gave that advice, don't wait till it's too late.
So I'd say you start off with a landscape, you figure out what the pre-existing technology is, find out competitors, gaps, etc. That's very critical. Please don't go backwards. And then generally also just from on a side note, from a brand protection perspective, you can look at trademark, design, patents, copyrights is if you have extra money. So coming back to patents, don't unnecessarily go and disclose the details of your invention to people. You can talk about it as broadly, but the specific technical details, keep that confidential because there is you can get your invention, you can actually be cited against yourself. That is one of the
Even on social media today.
yeah,
right? They
absolutely.
quote
You
and on the conference.
yeah, so do that, and then check what are the jurisdictions of interest to you. So India, or is it other countries that are of interest? So make sure you've done your research on that, which is your relevant market, and your patent filings should match that. Secondly, don't wait for your idea to be perfect. Because the protection goes to first to file. And so go ahead and file your provisional, give yourself, and then you have 12 months to file the complete specification. That's a very long period of time to actually, fish out the details of your invention. So that's the other thing that I'd say, keep in mind with regards to patent filings.
Yeah, Bhupinder-ji.
So most of the most of the startups founders that I worked with come from a non-medical background, and very brilliant, smart people. They don't have perspective of what is required to get a regulatory clearance. So make your regulatory strategy part of your business strategy itself. It is going to define your timeline, amount of testing you need to do, amount of validation you need to do before you put device in the market. And there's a cycle time of regulatory approval also. Depending on how many markets you want to launch at, so keep the regulatory strategy as part of your overall business strategy. You'll be surprised by the timeline it takes and the budget it takes.
Also, its processes are built in, right? If you're
Right.
new, you're expanding your team and you're not sure what system do I need, what template do I need. Look at regulations as more of an enabler in best practices, so you don't have to be the bad one and say you have to do this because it's being asked for. It's actually more helpful that way than treating it as a layer at the end.
Actually, if
Also,
I,
the VCs will look at it from a technology point of view. You guys are brilliant, so VCs will look at like how are you going to do the regulatory aspects of that. You don't have a background.
Yeah. Romit,
that's
you wanted
where-
to add something to that?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that just to adding to Bhupinder's point, in this market, regulatory is an entry barrier. So if you are the first for something, you should use that as a mode, because the next person will need to go through the entire regulatory process to get to that. So you actually will have time once you are regulatory cleared with something unique. So
Similar, even proprietary data. Yes, medical data is hard to find. Everyone's struggling, but that is also your moat, right? When you have it and it's yours, don't just share it. Like if you want to open source your data sets, great, but know you're creating competition.
Also, don't think of regulatory as a burden. Think of regulatory as not an extra documentation or extra work.
Compliance to regulate.
Your intent is to deliver a safe and effective device. And all these regulations, all these standards are going to help you to achieve that.
Exactly. So compliance to regulation is a one step towards a safe product.
Peter, and both we'll end with the clinical perspective on this healthcare thing, and also as a person who went from clinical to, the technical and attracted you to MedTech, there is a huge opportunity. A lot of people are afraid to get into this space, but what makes it attractive, even from a technical perspective, whatever it might be? Like, what drew you to it, and what should others think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, I think I agree with what everything says, especially starting with safety. I think the one thing that I would really like to add if you're building within healthcare is speak to your patient. It is hugely important. Understanding their perspectives, their caregivers' perspectives. Solving for those problems will go a very long way into adoption, even if your user is a doctor. It is, extremely important that if you're building in that space. And then on the diametrically opposite, side of the spectrum, I would say figure out your sales and distribution as early as possible, because having gone through the journey of the exciting journey of discovering a clinical need, building exciting technology for it, going through the regulatory process, the most difficult part, especially if you're a startup in this space, is going to be distribution, without a doubt. And it varies hugely depending on the geography you're going to distribute in. So figuring that out, that's what I would like to add.
I just add that you all know development process, correct? There is something called a buying process. So we need to go and find out what is the buying process of your buyers.
Yeah. You may follow the patient, but don't forget to follow the money. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, panel. This was a great, interaction. I hope the audience has enjoyed this and has learned something as well. Appreciate you all taking the time out to do this. And I hope you all enjoyed interacting with each other as well. So thank you so much. We just have a small token of appreciation. And I think they want a group photo as well, correct? Yeah. Yes. Go ahead.